Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And there we have it, a little sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about later on, as you could see there, as lower third as we just showed. Can't even tell you what it said because didn't even read it, was just trying to get it off the screen. But yeah, welcome MMJHL fans into what is the season finale of the MMJHL podcast here on your home of the MMJHL, our coverage here in 2024-2025 on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. I'm your host, Graham the G-Show Forsyth. Special thanks to everyone for tuning into this one we're going to get those graphics sorted out soon here. But yeah, this is in fact the finale. I want to thank everyone who has tuned into this season for tuning in to not only our podcast coverage, but if you tuned into our games as well and followed us along on our journey on social media. Super satisfied with how this season ended up going. I hope you all enjoyed the coverage. Proud to say that altogether we brought in over $3,000 from our 19 playoff games on Uscreen. So thank you to everyone that purchased games and tuned into them that way in terms of pay-per-view content. That's something we're strongly considering heading into next season. We're going to do a much better job too of getting highlights out and content to promote the live stream snippets from our live games. It was just a bit of a process this year getting used to a new service and all the ins and outs that come with it. Speaking of our Uscreen games, they are now free to watch on our Uscreen channel. I'm going to take a look back and see if there are some that are not. But what I'm going to be doing is throughout these next 2 months, this next month for sure here in May, we're going to try our best to get every single game out onto our YouTube to see what we were offering on Uscreen, and just in fact that the playoffs are well over now at this point. I think it's time to release all of the games on our YouTube here. Our YouTube channel coming up shortly, which will also be available on our website. But what a final between the St. Boniface Riels and the Transcon Railer Express. I mean, it only goes 5 games, but every single one of these games up until really game number 5, the game that St. Boniface clinched their 6th championship in franchise history and to become MMJHL champions, every single game was really close in this series. As we take a look at how the final bracket shook out, as I got to adjust something here, but you'll see it in a moment. St. Boniface a win away from perfection. Pretty unbelievable stuff. They ended up sweeping a pretty good team in the St. Vital Junior Victorias with some star talent. Then they go up against the number 1 seeded Fort Garry Twins and sweep them, which I don't think anybody saw that coming. And even talking to the St. Boniface Riels and their coaching staff, head coach and Paul Castus, I'm not sure they even expected it. But a dominant run to get to the finals. They were looking like the favorites, even though they were the 4th seed compared to their opponent, the 3rd seed in the Transcon Railer Express, where they had more of a dramatic path to the finals, as they were actually down 2-1 in their series to the St. James Junior Canucks, rattled off 3 straight, and within those 3 straight came some thrillers to clinch out the series. They won in triple overtime, which ended up dethroning the St. James Junior Canucks, meaning we'd see a new champion this season. And then they ended up losing the first game to the Charleswood Hawks, but made some adjustments and then gave them a good old gentleman's sweep, just like Charleswood did to the Stonewall Jets in the first round. It set up a final against who I would say you could argue when they were at their best this season, the best 2 teams in this league. 2 young teams, St. Boniface, a team with a bit more experience, but both teams prove themselves as, teams that were worthy to get to the finals this season. And what we're going to be doing in this episode is we're going to be taking you through every single, or the key moments, I'd say, from these finals. You're going to see a lot more highlights in some games compared to others, but we're going to work our way all the way up until the final game, where there'll be a bit more commentary from me on highlights. This episode, by the way, brought to you by Terraco, Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Goaltenders. We're also going to be doing our best to review what was a eventful 2024-2025 MMJHL season. In short, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else who may be watching this, there's going to be a lot here coming up on the finale of the MMJHL podcast here for Season 2 in 2025. All the way in May now. Crazy how time flies. Ending this one off the right way with showing you Game 1, which was an absolute thriller right from the start.
Duke it out here early. A turnover. Sorrell looking to take advantage. That scores! Almost kicked down low to Suket. Instead, back up to Bonin. Across to Lambert. That shot through, scores! I believe it might have been a tip in front. Feed that pass out in front, though. McClure has that cut off as he turns it over. Played back up. Davis sends this through. It's to Trotego. Denied by Deller. And in front still scores. The Riels relentless on the puck pressure, and it pays off. In front, putting it home. Not sure who it is just yet, but that's 2 unanswered. Canada Fasteners and Tools. One-stop shop for all your industrial needs. More on the contest we're running with them throughout this period as that shot in, scores! pass number 3 in Matejchuk. Another fortunate bounce in the direction that puck. As in front scores! Just like that, the Riels answer, putting themselves up by 1 again. That's Avon Cockerell in front. As you had some good time to build up some offensive zone pressure as Whiteman shot there scores! Speak of the devil, it's Whiteman who answers. But maybe shot enough. Or maybe it was Matejchuk that was there in front. It might have been him that put it home, but all signs point towards Riels. Develop a 3-on-2. Chornley to Brzezinski, tries to drag that in fire, but forgot the puck. Brzezinski's second attempt, loose puck there, tipped in front, scores! Shea Chornley! Feeling like a regular now is who's known as an AP, and Shea Chornley counting up huge for his team.
So a very eventful game one, which saw the St. Boniface Riels capitalizing on some key mistakes by the Transcone Railer Express, and I'd say as the series went along, puck management went in favor of the St. Boniface Riels. Thought that in the final, or I guess game number 3 and number 4, Transcona played some of their best hockey, ended up coming away with a split in those 2 games. But in terms of that first game of the series, both teams playing a game where, we saw lead changes, seen some fantastic goaltending from both sides, to big-time players stepping up, and the Riels with a bit more in the tank in that one to open up the finals with a 1-0 lead in the best of 7 as we get our season 2 finale graphic and tour in this edition of the MMJHL podcast. As in game number 2, and funny enough, outside of this game, the first 4 games of this series very reminiscent of 2024's final between the St. James Junior Canucks and the Pembina Valley Twisters, where game number 3 and 4 both went to overtime. All games were only won by 1 goal throughout the first 4 games of last year's final, where this one, game 2, would look a bit different and in favor of St. Boniface at that.
Spin this out now. Riel ball as it takes a big physical hit afterwards. Now Tonorek has a spill as he gets taken out. That backdoor scores! Up ice, transitioning up as Van Dyne's off of a leg and blocked hard there by Coe. He's feeling the after effects of that one. Another block from Coe in front as a warrior-like chip from 10 into the slot, scores! And it's number 8 in Matt Trott who answers.
And big-time performances there from St. Boniface's, one of their acquisitions at the deadline, and Alex Van Dynes. You saw that big-time pass he ends up making to Trott to give them some insurance. And for Shea Chornley, a player that didn't get regular ice time all season long with this Riels team, will get slotted into the lineup for the first few games and in this finals in general, and comes away with back-to-back goals, a big one to open up the scoring in game number 2. And for this finals, we saw in some of these games that were back and forth between the two sides. This was a very fast-paced series too. Both of these teams with a lot of speed, not afraid to get physical. It was a lot of fun to watch, even though it was 5 games. Felt like it went a lot longer than that, to be honest with you. But in a crucial game 3 for both of these teams, because no matter what, you don't want to go down 3-0 in any series, and Transcona was looking to avoid that. And in a game where they were back on their home ice on April 15th, so a few Tuesdays ago now, Transcona opened up with a lead in this one. Ended up being a strong performance by the Riels in the second period, outscoring them 3-1 there to end up taking a 3-2 lead into the third. But Transcona wouldn't say die, outscoring St. Boniface 2-1 in that third period to end up sending it to overtime, and the player to do so was Carter Johannesson, his second of the playoffs. 14-14 into that third period, all squared at 4 apiece. And for St. Boniface, a huge storyline in this series too was them getting some players back throughout it, and what better player to get back than Ty McNaughton, who would clutch up in overtime around the 7:40 mark into the opening overtime period frame.
Catching a piece of it was Larocque. D. That shot blocked on the way through. McNaughton off the iron cleanly. Another chance. That off the Railer Express. And it's heartbreak as it's into the back of their net. The Riels take a 3-0 series lead. Back to Southdale, as they'll be looking to close it out for their second championship in MMJHL history on Thursday night.
And what a return to the lineup for Ty McNaughton, scoring his first goal of the postseason at that. McNaughton also had a primary assist in this one, and yeah, just looking back at it, that was it for number 21. But playing in his final year of eligibility, the 03 born forward, coming up big time for the St. Boniface Riels team. At the time, put them up 3-0, and at that point, St. Boniface was close to making history. They would have become the first team since the 2011-2012 Charles Wood Hawks to put up a perfect 12-0 run in the postseason if they were able to come away with a win in game number 4. But as mentioned, I thought that Transcona in this series probably played some of their best hockey from their perspective. I'd say creating more and more throughout game 3 and even in game number 4. And in game 4, with their backs against the wall, do or die, looking to send it back to East End for at least one more game on Easter Saturday. At that point, their best players, well, some of their best players ended up being just that.
Berchanski gets it right back. Quick pass over to Vandenbush. Reyes to defend. Vandenbush pulls up. Drop back to Matejchuk. Over to Berchanski. That shot through. Rebound there. Whiteman digging away at it. It's in for 7. He puts the Railers on top. With 2:15 remaining, the goal stands. Railers lead. Railers lead. And Trey Sun, big-time players make big-time plays. He's been a big-time winner, go-home game. There is no tomorrow if they lose. The Riels get possession of it back. Buckneck at the point, over 1T. Oh, what a save by Delarone. Line just held by Buckneck with 5 seconds remaining. Loose puck there, rebound again, and the Railers will survive. They'll live on. The first team to beat the St. Boniface Riels team in the playoffs. We're going back to East End on Easter weekend, on Easter Saturday. What a performance.
I know I was fired up on that call. Delarone coming up clutch in a big moment. Selling as well with 2 goals in that game, both coming on the power play. And yeah, this game was tied at 2 apiece after the second period. Transcona was up 1-0. Declan Whiteman, who stepped into a forward position, usually defenseman, ended up doing some big-time scoring down the line in this series. We're going to show the full stats from this series coming up soon here, but from both sides, that is. But yeah, Trey Sullen, what a performance from him in that game. Ended up having 2 goals, both coming on the power play. Ended up scoring his 8th at the time, which was that game winner. And yeah, I thought that Transcona, it was crucial for them to be able to break through into those dirty areas. That's what they needed to do against a team that was so defensively sound as St. Boniface. And I'd say out of all the teams, they probably did the best out of the 3 opponents that the St. Boniface Riels faced in doing that, which was crashing the net and getting bodies there and making it difficult for St. Boniface, and finally paid off with an extra man there in their biggest game of the season for the Transcona Railer Express. Game 5 highlights coming up next, as we'll show you how the St. Boniface Riels brought home their 6th championship in franchise history and their 2nd of this century. Coming up after these messages from both, only one sponsor for now in Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools from their Brandon location. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon takes pride in selling the tools farmers and tradespeople rely on. Like our Winnipeg location, Brandon carries the same tools you know and love. From all the brands you can trust, all in one convenient place. And with unbeatable service, we'll make sure you get the right tools to get the job done. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon, proud to serve Brandon's industrial needs since 2018. Stop on by today at 358 Park Avenue East. And welcome back into the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast on your home for Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League hockey on G-Show Productions. I'm your host, of course, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terracoat Goaltenders, and as you just saw from our branding commercial, from their Brandon location, McKen Fasteners and Tools, be sure to check them out today at one of their store locations in either Brandon or Winnipeg. They also have a website, mckenfasteners.shop, is where you can check them out. They're your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. Looking for new tools, something that may get the job done a bit easier, McKen Fasteners and Tools is that place for you to go for, like I said, all your industrial needs. But yeah, thank you to them as well as all of our sponsors for supporting us once again this season, and to our new sponsor for joining us in Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Not new now, but they were new to our team at the start of this year. And yeah, I mean, what a season it was in the MMJHL. Was thinking maybe we could have seen a Game 6 in this finals, given how the Railers, breathed a bit of new life into that series with that win for themselves, it looked like. And how was St. Boniface going to respond, right? 11 straight wins, and then you drop one. Haven't been in that situation yet in these playoffs, and it's always the toughest, as they say, the old saying goes, is to close out that final game, and in this case, to win a 4th one for St. Boniface in a best-of-7 series. But for them, on Easter Saturday, well, the team who ended up claiming the right to be referred to this, I'd say, the best team in the MMJHL, came to play and brought their best. As we get into the highlights here, and I gotta do this before we do so. So here we go, final game of the MMJHL season with highlights of pretty much every single goal here coming up. So we start in the first period where it would be Mike Hepner. Took a pass on the skates at first, but does a good job to carry it into the zone. Follows up at the net right there to put that home. That shot from Carson Dubois to give the Riels the 1-0 lead only 34 seconds into this game. So a very fast start from St. Boniface in a game where, as mentioned, they were looking for their 6th championship in their franchise's history. Later on in the first period, the Riels pressing around the net in tight. This gets over to Ty McNaughton, who puts it home in the slot. McNaughton, his second of the postseason, second of the finals. Van Dynes and Keaton with the assists. It's St. Boniface up 2-0 after the first period of play where they dominated action. 18-3 were the shots, but Transcona getting some life on the power play here. 12:21 in. They work it around, work down low by Vandenbush. Right there for the rebound is going to be Declan Whiteman. So, mad at myself. I thought it was Ronco. I was working camera in this too while announcing, so it was one crazy night for me as well. But Transcona draws within one. Things looking promising for them to maybe tie this up, but the Riels, as they've done all postseason long, making teams pay off the rush. Van Dynes looks off a man before, sniping one past Sage Delarone. It would be his 5th of the postseason. The former Pembina Valley Twister, minutes away now, or a period or so away now from becoming a champion. They got to close it out in here. Well, great steps and towards that becoming a reality. Sukit puts home a long rebound left there by Delarone. Van Dynes with the shot at St. Boniface up 4-1. They'd add on an empty net goal. Matthew Trott playing in this final game has
played maybe their most complete game of these playoffs, and 10 years later since their last championship, the Riels are golden again. Championship number 6 for St. Boniface. And the championship, the Jack McKenzie Trophy in the MMJHL, will be going back to Southdale. Together as a squad and hoist it together. Congratulations once again to the St. Boniface Riels on etching their names, or at least their team name. The St. Boniface Riels 2024-2025 squad will forever live in MMJHL immortality.
And what a night that was. What a moment for the St. Boniface Riels. Truly a dominant run from this team, as they were one game shy of being perfect. Came a goal away from that in game number 4. It just goes the Railers' way there. But yeah, the Riels bringing their best in that game number 5. And funny enough, when we talk about resemblance to last year's final to this year's, well, St. James also closed it out with a 5-1 victory in game 5 over the Pembina Valley Twisters to claim what was their 3rd straight title. But there's a new king in the MMJHL, Jack McKenzie winners, the St. Boniface Riels. Congratulations to all the players, Paul Castus, Tyler Moore, the Frickus family, and everyone involved with the St. Boniface Riels in making this thing happen. Unbelievable run, and really, Owen LaRock standing out a lot in this postseason. I'd say he was probably the story of this postseason just based off of the stats. 12-1, 929 save percentage, and a shutout. He ended up being named playoff MVP, and rightfully so. Other players that were in the conversation, of course, if Transcona ends up winning, Vandenbush, Sellen, I think, are in that conversation, as well as Sage Delarone, too. Sage Delarone made a lot of big saves in this finals and gave Transcona a lot of life in these games, gave them a chance a lot of times. But for St. Boniface, LaRock, of course, winning it, Brzezinski, Connor Davis, Van Dynes had himself an amazing final, but Owen LaRock, rightfully so, taking this home, dazzling numbers, a great save percentage, and he had a bit of everything, too, getting a shutout, his first in this finals, which, funny enough, only 3 goaltenders throughout these playoffs ended up having shutouts, as we can see them there. Our stats brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. The goal leaders, Brzezinski, Sullen, Sukic, both all finishing tied for first with 8 goals each. Cole Davis, Vandenbush with 7 goals each there. As we can see, no one had more assists than the Transcona captain in Nolan Vandenbush, but 4 players were close, all with 11 there, as we can see, from Connor Davis all the way to Alex Van Dynes. But when we take a look at this finals, the Riels triumphed to take the throne. Taking a look at the notes, strong performances from a lot of players in these finals. When we take a look at Alex Van Dynes, one of the assist leaders, along with Connor Davis, Cockrell, Brzezinski, Sukic, Chornley, both stepping up in these finals with 2 goals each. Cockrell, Davis, both with 4 points each. And I just want to take a look at Van Dynes' final stats, because, yeah, he ended up having a lot of points in this finals, actually. Ended up having quite a few there, as he ended up having, 7 points in total, actually. So ended up missing on that a bit, but for the Transcona Railer Express, Declan Whiteman stepped up big time. Their defensemen really stepping up huge in the offensive categories, as we can see there. Goaltending performance-wise, Owen LaRocque above 900 save percentage and a shutout. Sage Delarone, I don't think the numbers do his performance justice, just below 900, so sub 900 save percentage, but made a lot of huge saves in this series, facing a St. Boniface team that put up 33 shots on average on their net. A team that also spent a lot more time on the power play compared to the Transcona Railer Express, as we can see there by the statistics. Transcona, their power play came to play in this series. Compared to St. Boniface, had a better power play percentage, but it wasn't quite enough for the Railer Express. And when I take a look at this final series, taking a look at both sides, and we'll start off, I guess, with the Transcona Railer Express, ended up running out of magic. I think that they ran into a team in the St. Boniface Riels that were just clicking at the right time, found a lot of great momentum through their first 2 rounds of their postseason. And for the Railers, the skill was there for them. I think the pieces are in place for this team and for this group that they have in place to potentially become champions here very soon. But it just, wasn't enough in this series. Thought that they gave the puck away too many times in crucial moments. Thought that St. Boniface overwhelmed them in points around their own net, and did a really good job at finding the garbage and putting it away. And I thought that Transcona played better as this series went along, got a lot more grade A scoring chances, found ways to get to the net more. But in that game 5, just had no answers for the St. Boniface Riels. Looked like maybe they were starting to get a comeback going, but St. Boniface, their counterattack, it's been so good all season long. It's just, it put the life out of the Railer Express's comeback or any chance of it at that point. I'd say having a 3-goal lead heading into the final 20 minutes of a game where St. Boniface played really well. And I think overall, though, Transcona has to hold their heads really high. This is a team that's going to be returning a lot of players next season, and a team that I think is, we're going to talk about it soon, or I'm going to talk about it soon here to finish off this episode, but has a really good chance of being considered one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win it all next season. Only losing a couple pieces. If we take a look at their team, and I've mentioned this before, I think I mentioned it on the broadcast, or one of our finals broadcasts at least, said that Don Gale had a conversation with him, the owner of the Transcona Railer Express, and he talked about how this season Transcona really wasn't even supposed to be as good as they were. These past 2 seasons have been kind of 2 years where, well, they have been, not kind of, but have been years where they've gone younger and have been trusting the process of hoping this group can come together and do something special, and they ended up doing that this year by reaching a finals. For players that are going to be aging out, they'll be losing some good pieces like Jeremy Shadenow, Evan Chudley up front, as well as Michael Todoruk on the back end. They're going to be losing Austin Campbell, but then that's it. They're going to have a lot of great pieces back, selling Vandenbush up front, players like Ryder McClure, who I thought really looked good on this first line in this finals. Thought it was Transcona's strongest line as it had been throughout the postseason, but hopefully he can make a strong recovery. You got leading goal scorer from this season, Nathan Turner, back next year, right? And then other good pieces up front on the back end. You got Caden Berchanski back, which I thought he was phenomenal in this postseason. You're also going to be getting Declan Whiteman back, who's got another couple of years in this league and showed to be really versatile this season. Just a lot to like overall. There's so many other players that haven't named that are coming back for Transcona next year. But then you look, they're set in net with Sage Delarone and Logan Maroney, both 2006 born players that are going to be there for the foreseeable future. That both put up really strong rookie campaigns, and Delarone, like I've talked about, showed up big time throughout this postseason and made some big saves in the finals. So Transcona, even though they fall short in 5 games, a lot to be proud of this year, and if they can build off of this experience, look out for them next year is a team that's going to be very strong. Let's not forget that Transcona, heading into the new year this year, was the first place team in the league, and you could argue was the early favorite to win it all. But the team who put it all together, the St. Boniface Riels, proved a lot in this postseason. I think finishing off the year they did, they were struggling to score. And, you know, I heard a rumor maybe they were, you know, not playing their best so they could get a position where they wouldn't face off with certain teams in the first round. I just feel like maybe they hit a slump, honestly, heading into the playoffs in those final games. And look, things were honestly looking dire in game 1 when they were down 4-0, but pulled themselves together. A goaltending change that put Owen LaRocque in the net. Their team rallied behind, you know, their goaltender that just got into net in LaRocque, and did it for Michael O'Sullivan, who got pulled and scored 5 unanswered. And in every single game against the St. Vital Junior Victorias, they were down and came back in every single one of them. Against the Fort Garry Twins, they proved that their depth ended up being superior to theirs, their defensive play, and proved that they could, you know, run them down, outwork them as games went along and as that series went along and did. And then to finish it off, you know, losing their first game of the postseason, the finals, where momentum could very well shift in that series if St. Boniface, you know, doesn't come to play in the next one, and they end up proving that they could close it out like they had better than anybody in the postseason up until this point. And yeah, they peaked at the right time. This was a team that really played with no fear, whether they were down in games or up in games. They kept attacking, kept pressuring. They had everything that just came together for them. Like I said, fantastic goaltending, but not only that, as great as Owen LaRocque played, and I've said it before on this podcast, I've said it throughout the finals and the postseason, and I'll say it again. You know, as great as Owen LaRocque was, and he backstopped this team and made all the key saves when things broke down, St. Boniface proved that their D-zone play was really above anyone else's throughout this postseason. Like, they didn't average that many shots against it all throughout this postseason. In fact, on average, they gave up 27.4. This was a team that was limiting high danger scoring chances so well, better than any team throughout the postseason, and their offense came through at the biggest points and the biggest moments. Their deadline deals, too, ended up paying off big time. Everything that St. Boniface put in throughout this season, the process they had, the big moves by Tyler Moore, it all came together to pay off, to see something beautiful. One of the most dominant runs that I think this league has ever seen in the postseason. St. James, their runs, there was dominance in those for sure. To win 3 straight, they only dropped 5 playoff games in their last 3 years, so that's a dynasty right there. And St. Boniface, who knows if this is the start of a dynasty, but to win their second championship in this century, their first since a decade ago and 6th in franchise history, the way they did it, a team with so much skill when we're talking about, Avon Cockrell, Connor Davis, Alex Van Dynes, Ty McNaughton, list goes on, forward-wise. And then on their back end, Mike Hepner, bring in that common veteran presence. Noah Keating as well, a veteran on this team. And, just that youth injected into that, having just that great mix. St. Boniface had everything this season, just putting it that. And a team that's going to be returning a lot of talent potentially next season. Owen LaRock has a chance to come back, and that Alex Dominico as well, being an 05. Yes, they're going to lose their captain and Connor Davis and, players from their leadership group that were all 03 born players this season. And Connor Davis, Ty McNaughton, Matthew Trott, Noah Keating. They're also going to be losing, taking a look at it, Brody Melstead, who they brought in via trade, which that was another great move for them. But yeah, they're going to have players coming back, a lot of good talent potentially. That is, I think their coaching staff going to demand a lot out of those players who are going to be returning to step up and jump into potentially bigger roles. And I have a feeling that, that could very well happen. A team that's built one of the best cultures in the league here throughout the past 3 seasons. We'll see if they can keep it up next year. But yeah, what Paul Cassis and his group did this season coming in, finishing off what Zach Franco started in this group, coming together to do something special. Almost running the table, going 12-1 this year in the MMJHL postseason, where also seeing a lot of players overall that are going to be going this year, graduating out of the league. We're going to talk about all that coming up next. We're going to hit you with another commercial break, though, as we'll be looking into next year coming up next on the MMJHL Podcast Season 2 finale here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
This off to Mike Hepner, who he goes for a skate. Hepner with a goal in last game.
Oh, I didn't mean to play that again, but yeah, maybe you thought we were starting up highlights again. No, we're not doing that, but we are getting into probably the final part of this episode. We may hit you with one more commercial break, but welcome back everybody onto this edition of the MMJHL Podcast, the Season 2 finale here on May 6th. Hockey, of course, last played here in the MMJHL in April. A few weeks ago, we saw the MMJHL season officially come to an end. A season which, let's see if they tell us the number of games that were played here in total on the schedule. They don't say exactly, but hundreds of games played this season. Over 100 for sure. Teams playing 45 games each. So we'll actually do the math here real quick. 450 regular season games, loads of games in the postseason this year. So yeah, hundreds of MMJHL games were played. That's not even taking into account preseason, and a very long season. That, well, before we know it, we're going to be starting up again next year. And we can't wait for it, as we're going to be back as the official broadcasters of this league. More to come on that in terms of how things may potentially look heading into next year. But as we pull up, here we go. 2024-2025 takeaways. I'd say a lot to take away from this season, but super competitive at the top. Really until the last few weeks, probably a couple weeks of the season this year. Like, it was anybody's game in that top four out of Fort Garry, Charleswood, Transcona, and St. Boniface to grab the top spot. It ended up going to the Fort Garry Twins, which, hey, I mean, I think that it's got to be really disappointing for this team, considering how many team or players graduate out of the Twins this year. This was kind of their year, and them making that move to get Rylan Huging, I think, even though they didn't say it to me, and Scott Long said they take everything game by game and it's a process. That was a move, I think, that had Fort Garry going all in. But yeah, for them to win 16 straight games to finish off the season and carry it in with extended it to 20 straight games with that first round sweep was unbelievable to see. But yeah, super competitive at the top this season. Came down to the final few games, and teams weren't separated by much, even though the Twins won 16 game straights to claim first place. They only finished 2 points, so a win above the Charleswood Hawks. And then we look at Transcona and St. Boniface. If River East doesn't beat St. Boniface in the final game of the season, St. Boniface would have finished in the third spot as that third seed and finished a point above the Transcona Railer Express. So I thought that was really fun to see how close that top four really was, coming down to the wire this year. I thought that there were some surprises for sure. Big disappointment too in the regular season for the Pembina Valley Twisters. I get it, they lost loads of talent, and the players that returned didn't exactly step up in the new talent they added. You know, as a group, they couldn't deliver a successful year, and I'd say it was a pretty dreadful year for the Pembina Valley Twisters to make it to the finals 2 out of the past 3 seasons heading into this one, and making the playoffs, you know, in between that, losing in the Elite Eight 3 seasons ago now. Like, I get it, there could be some drop off, but to not even win a game at home, to only have 3 wins on the year, and to not even crack 10 points, I thought that was a shock in itself. Like, if they were going to miss the playoffs, sure, but yeah, a season where it can only get better now. It can't get any worse, you'd have to think, for the Pembina Valley Twisters. But yeah, I'd say that was a big surprise. Another shocker to me was just, honestly, how things went in St. James this season. A team for the past 3 years, and even before that, who I'd say had one of the best cultures in the league, had the best culture and leadership room in the league for the past 3 seasons, and I think that was part of the recipe to their success. But see it fall apart, or hear about how it fell apart behind the scenes. I won't get into all of it, but won't get into it in depth totally, but their captain and best player in this league, most skilled player in this league, getting suspended indefinitely, them changing their coaching staff, and them, you know, like I said with Pembina Valley, like, you expect them to fall, and St. James, their fall in the standings from 1st to 6th isn't as drastic, but still crazy to see that, you know, things behind the scenes there ended up falling apart this season a bit, and there was some chaos, and it was great to, you know, see Ryan Dick and the staff that came in, the former Pembina Valley Twister, could right the ship a bit. But yeah, St. James, for the first time in a long time, ended up losing playoff series, and didn't have their best player and their captain at that to finish things off, which is pretty crazy. Would have loved to see Rory Neal finish off the season, but yeah, things happened that I think you could have control, got out of hand from what I heard, and just lessons to be learned that, yeah, basically, you know, being a decent human being on the ice counts a lot still, and it ended up, yeah, I won't repeat the things that I've heard that were said, but yeah, expected a lot more out of the leader of the St. James Junior Canucks, and I think, yeah, it's a lesson in terms of, I think to win in any league, having at this level, at this age, you need to have, some good leadership, and that's something that is going to be interesting to see what that leadership next year will look like for the St. James Junior Canucks, where they look to go. Do they bring Ryan Dick back? What questions will they answer? What questions will be answered from the St. James Junior Canucks going into next year, which now they look to dethrone a team rather than defending their title. That would be the hope, of course, for every team that is in the St. Boniface Riels next year, to dethrone that team that is now the champion in the Riels. But in terms of the other surprises, I wouldn't really say Fort Garry finishing first. Like, they had the roster to finish first, and they came through on that. Charleswood had a very strong year this year, as they have for the most part, throughout the past 3 years, always a top 4 team, and they ended up rising to second this year. Awards-wise, thought that Spicer for the Pembina Valley Twisters, that was a bit of a shocker to me. Thought it was going to go to Avon Cockerell or maybe even Sage Delarone based off of the season he had. So, yeah, plenty of surprises. Trying to think of some others, or maybe one more. Maybe for me personally, wasn't surprised that this team took a step, but maybe surprised by how big of a step they took, and that was the Transcone Railer Express, just based off of they finished 8th the season before, right? And thought that they could get to maybe 4th place this season, which they finished 3rd, but this was a first place team at the end of 2024, and we're going to be talking about them a bit more coming up here soon. But yeah, for Transcone, I think this was a year where they proved critics wrong. One being myself throughout this postseason. Ended up having them going out in the first round. But yeah, Transcone, a lot to look forward to heading into next year. Big disappointment, I'd say, for the Fort Garry Twins and the Charleswood Hawks. Now, Charleswood, they have, I think, still promise heading into next year, given the returning talent that they have. Like, they're going to lose a few players, and they're key players, but I think that Cole Penner trade was huge. They have him instead of, Rylan Hugin, for example, who aged out this season. So they got a bit younger earlier this year. They're still going to have some key pieces back heading into next year. Coaching staff probably going to be pretty much the same for Charleswood, if not identical, and they're also going to be getting Keegan Gordon back. But it's a big disappointment given that they finished the way they did this season, losing 4 straight, being up 1-0 in the first round, and just, the mistakes they made, just mistakes you can't make in the playoffs, which ended up costing Charleswood a chance to end up getting into the finals. And yeah, I thought that Transcona, their coaching staff, did a really good job of adjusting, where maybe Charleswood didn't adjust as well to Transcona, what they were doing throughout that series. And then another huge disappointment, it has to be the Fort Garry Twins, right? I mean, even though there was only one team that beat the St. Boniface Riels, like, from your perspective, this was the year. You had an 100-point getter in Dean Gorczynski. On paper, you could say the most skilled team in the MMJHL. We talked about it before, right? I talked about it in the postseason preview show, or the playoff preview show for this, that I said on paper, you look at the skill they have, no one had as many goal scorers or point getters as the Fort Garry Twins had, and they had great goaltending throughout this year too, which was among some of the best, and to not even win a game in the Final Four with this group, quite surprising and quite disappointing any way you slice it. The way they ended up losing that series as it went along, even though St. Boniface proved to be the better team as it did go along, and got the better goaltending, maybe the better bounces. Fort Garry ran into some penalty trouble that cost them too in that series. And I think what makes it so disappointing too is when you take a look at their roster and the players that they're going to be losing. One of the oldest teams in this league this season, Nick Gilberto, Dean Gorchinski, Carter Halamandaris, Rylan Hewing, Sean Neufeld up front. They're all going to be gone due to aging out. Then you look, Ethan Johnson, Hunter Livingstone, Eric Voth, as well as Sam Matani, all aging out on the back end. They're going to get their goaltending back. But yeah, that's quite a blow to your roster heading into next year. Good chunk of experience and good chunk of skill that you're losing. And yeah, that's what makes, I think, this season that much more disappointing, is this was the year for this Fort Garry Twins team. A lot of questions maybe heading into this offseason, or maybe they're going to plan to just run it back next year with the group they have. It's going to be interesting to see in Fort Garry next year for sure. Given that they're coming off of, yes, they made it through, passed around for the first time since 2013, but disappointing nonetheless outside of that. I think in this postseason, it came down to two. I said it throughout the podcast this year. I know I didn't pick them to win the finals, have them get into the finals, but just looking at them play consistently this season, getting to watch a lot of them this year, I think the best team in this league ended up winning. The St. Boniface Riels, built extremely well, played with a lot of heart, a lot of passion, and made big-time moves at the deadline. Talk about them being one of the big two winners, and that came through big time. You can make an argument without LaRock, Van Dynes, the moves they made, Hepner too on the back end. Bringing those guys in specifically, does St. Boniface have the same type of run? They had a lot of skill, but I think those guys definitely brought a lot of stability, some good leadership, good experience from the Pembina Valley Twisters days, as they were all in that finals team last year. But like I said, everything came together for St. Boniface. This was a quick team, a deep team, most complete team in the league in the end that proved themselves, and congratulations to them on one heck of a season. Last point I'll make. Don't think we've seen... Now, there's been players, of course, that always graduate out of this league, but maybe not as much as we've seen this year. 44 players in total that are going to be graduating out this year, which is pretty crazy. Looking at the Canucks, they're going to have, taking a look, about 10 players graduating out. The Twins, 9. St. Boniface going to be losing 7. St. Vital, 6. Charleswood, 4. Transcona, 4. Stonewall, 3. The only teams not losing any is Pembina Valley and the Raiders. River East only loses 1, and Manny Manuka Jr. But when I take a look at this year's class, there's a lot of skill leaving this league. Tyler Rubini, Rylan Neshwaduk from the St. Vital Junior Victorias, Matt Carlson, Van Norman, captain there for the Charleswood Hawks, leaving. Anthony Jacob, a bruiser up front. Evan Chudley, Jeremy Shadna from the Transcona Railer Express, right? The captain of the Stonewall Jets, highlighting the players leaving there out of their 3, and Cole Emberley. And then for Fort Garry, as mentioned moments ago, their players, and St. James too, losing, a lot on the D side of things. On the D core, Aiden Bruce, Magnus Enerson, Rory Neal, Caden Stewart, all aging out. Griffin Height as well, Ashton Romanuk, that have been part of championship teams, and then some of their additions. But Yeah, for these franchises that are losing a lot of players, it's about the players, I think, coming back next year. How can you step up into bigger roles that you could be asked to play in? And, how do these teams, bring in rookies to help them be effective? And how do those rookies step up? Lots of questions for some of these teams heading into next year, and can't wait to be a part of it, as mentioned. But yeah, way too early predictions. We'll end off with these. The favorites to win in 2025-2026. If St. Boniface returns all of their team, most of their team, and you got key players like Owen LaRock back in the pipes, and you got the plethora of skill you have on forward, where you still have Avon Cockrell that's going to be there. And let me just pull up St. Boniface's roster here real quick, because there's so much talent still that is going to be coming back on this year's roster. I mean, Nathan Brzezinski, or for next year's roster potentially, as I should say, but Nathan Brzezinski will be back as an 04 born forward, so he'll have one more year left. Avon Cockrell, we've seen what he can do this season in a Riels jersey. Carson Dubois, great player, he's going to be back. Same with Cole Davis. Eric Johnson as well. Reeves Sukut. Alex Van Dynes has a chance to return, as he's going to be here for it, at most the next 2 seasons. Back end wise, they're not losing much, only losing from their original roster heading into this year. Noah Keating going to be losing, Mike Hepner as well. But this team has so many pieces in place. There's a lot of talent here in St. Boniface that I think that St. Boniface, they're going to have a great chance to be considered the favorites to win it all next year in 25-26. But for me, my favorite at this point heading into next year, because there's a bit more returning talent coming back on their roster, a team that's going to have, most of their leadership group back and be getting back, which was arguably the best goaltending tandem in the league this year. So many game breakers still on this roster when we talk about Van Bush and Trey Sullen, notably. And that's the Transcone Railer Express. I think for this team, what they built throughout this past 2 seasons has been leading up to these upcoming 2 years, but next year specifically, given the amount of 04s that this team has, they got quite a few of them. So next year is the year for Transcona. They got a lot of great experience this year, and I just love the way they're built. At this point heading into next year, I assume that most, if not all, of those players are gonna have a chance and will return to the team next year. And given that they're ahead of schedule in their rebuild, getting to a finals this year, I think this team is going to take this experience to heart. They're going to take it as a positive experience, build off of it, think about it heading into the offseason, think about it during the offseason, use it as motivation heading into next year. And I think that Transcona, for me, we're going to be looking at this team, in my opinion, as the favorite heading into the playoffs when regular season is all said and done next year. Let's not forget, as I've already mentioned, and I'll say it again, but first place after 2024, a team that was young this year, and a team that learned a lot in 2025, how to close out games. They did that better as the season went along. They did that really well in the postseason, showed a lot of fight, just ran into a team that had too much in the St. Boniface Riels. But next season, Transcona right now, I'd say, looks like they may have even more firepower than St. Boniface heading into next year, given that they're going to be losing less talent at that. But in terms of one more thing, who makes the biggest jump in the standings? I was thinking of who takes the biggest fall, but I think it's still too early to say still. I think once we get closer to camp, we'll have all of this for predictions heading into next year. We'll revise this too, but we'll take a look at who we think are the biggest fallers and biggest risers heading into next year. But for me, my biggest riser, I think it's going to be the Stonewall Jets. I think for Stonewall, looking at the squad, a team that, of course, finished 7th place this season, a team that made it to the postseason for the first time since, pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, up until this year, they have not made it into the postseason. And I think for Stonewall, they proved that they were able to stick with the Charleswood Hawks in those games, even though they lost in 5. They took the first game from them, and no games were really easy for Charleswood. Charleswood had to work in that first round, and that was the second-place team in the league this year. And yeah, Stonewall did seem to match up with Charleswood really well. They had a lot of speed, and that's what I like about this team. They have a lot of speed. A lot of that is going to be back next year. Out of all the teams, besides River East, Pembina Valley, and the Raiders, they're losing the fewest players with only 3. They're going to have some of the most talented players back in the league as well when we're taking a look at Peyton Bateman. For this group too, just taking a look at their roster, not only Bateman will be back, but Cohen Chang, as well as Alex Kaczorowski, who really showed out this season. Carson King, who's a solid goal scorer. A team who also added some good talent in players like Stephen Kutries from the Charleswood Hawks. And then you look at their back end, what this team was able to do going out and adding a solid defenseman in Noah Slobosian over from the St. Boniface Riels. Spencer Hunnam was a promising goaltender this year in his rookie year. So I think this is a team that's going to have some good youth still heading into next year, but a lot of players on this group are an 04 born player. This is a team that had a lot of good pieces in place this year, maybe could have had a bit better depth, wasn't quite able to put it together for consistent stretches, but I think much like Transcona from 2023-2024 to this season, with Stonewall, finishing 7th place, getting a taste of playoffs, given that they're going to be one of the teams returning some of the most players heading into next season, and given that they have a lot of top-end talent, led by the likes of, Peyton Bateman, as well as a young player, too, on the back end that I think is going to produce a lot of positives for them, in Finley Titterson, who's a 2007-born player. I think there's a lot to like about the Stonewall Jets heading to next year, a team that does need to continue to improve, but has a lot of skill in place, a lot of players with potential to return. Pat Power and the coaching staff will be in their 3rd year with this group, so they'll be more accustomed to the systems, more used to it. I could see Stonewall getting off to a hotter start than most teams next year, and actually keeping it up compared to this year where they started off undefeated through the first few games, sizzled out as the season went along, but finished stronger as the season ended to, secure their playoff spot. I think this team is going to be my biggest riser heading into next year, given all the pieces they have that are going to be coming back, that have potential to come back, and how they could potentially add to that. Who knows? Stonewall could be one of the busier teams at the deadline too next season to shore some things up. But yeah, we're going to hit you with one more commercial break here in the Season 2 finale of the MMJHL Podcast. Thanks for joining, everybody, and tuning into this one. We'll be done here soon. But first, another word from one of our sponsors.
Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon takes pride in selling the tools farmers and tradespeople rely on. Like our Winnipeg location, Brandon carries the same tools you know and love. From all the brands you can trust, all in one convenient place. And with unbeatable service, we'll make sure you get the right tools to get the job done. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon, proud to serve Brandon's industrial needs since 2018. Stop on by today at 358 Park Avenue East.
And you've made it to the end here of the Season 2 finale of the MMJHL Podcast on gshow Productions on gshow.ca. I've been talking a lot here in this episode, and as I have all season long, I want to thank you all for continuing to tune in as you have all season long up until the end here to the Season 2 finale. Thank you so much for your support all season long. Without you, the viewer, this really wouldn't be possible. The fact that we got a consistent amount of views as we did throughout this year too, not only on our podcast but our games, and seeing our numbers grow too is promising for us and promising for the future of this company, I'd say, and our working relationship with the MMJHL. Thank you to everyone at the MMJHL, to Carrie Lyons, the president, to Bart Finchfield, to the coaches, to the players, Bart, of course, the vice president of the league, but yeah, to the coaches, to the players, and everyone that, was so welcoming to us this season, from the teams when we were in arenas, and to the fans as well. I've already thanked the viewers, but the fans that were in attendance, that gave us, positive words of encouragement and just positive feedback, and, also to the fans that, gave us suggestions to help make our content better, to everyone that helped us out this season in the hockey community. Thank you so much, and we've loved to be a part of it, and can't wait to continue to be a part of it on the junior side too, specifically in the MMJHL. Thank you to our sponsors in the Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools, Terraco Goaltenders, as well as Canton Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, for sponsoring us and supporting us all season long. Hoping to see them all back next year. But yeah, can't say enough about how this season went. It was filled with so much excitement, so many great plays, so many great games throughout this season, and a season which I think, there wasn't much disappointment, if any at all, with the product that was put out and displayed on ice. A very talented league, a very underrated league in the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League, which is going to get younger next year, but I think that comes with a lot of potential promise too, to see players that are already playing in this league that are going into their next years to step up, for the players going into their last seasons to give it one more chance to win a championship. And for the new players coming in to help make a name for themselves, or to start to at least. We can't wait to see how it all unfolds next season in 2025-2026. Also want to give a special thanks to Bentley Brandt over from the Pembina Valley Twisters for helping us out throughout the playoffs and broadcasting games when our main crew at gshow Productions couldn't get out to certain locations, or things didn't quite work out with the schedule for us, and Bentley was able to come in and come up clutch with his team. He's gonna, by the way, be a part of things next year here on gshow Productions, your home for the MMJHL, as we're planning on doing multiple games per night heading into next year. We're gonna have a bunch more information about next season coming up this summer, most likely in August. That's my hope, that we get information about what we're gonna be doing for this league specifically, and really for all our leagues. That's my hope. We'll be doing next season. We'll have announcements in August. But until then, MMJHL fans, Winnipeg Jets fans too, enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs, enjoy the off-season, MMJHL fans. I've been your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth, that's been with you pretty much every step of the way this season, 24-25. The St. Boniface Riels are the champions heading into next year. Will they repeat? Will we see another team take the throne from St. Boniface? Well, we'll have to wait for 2025-2026, where every moment is sure to bring a lot of excitement again. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the offseason, like I said, and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Go Jets, go, baby. Hoping we can bring home the Stanley Cup hometown team. Wouldn't that be nice? But take care, everybody.